just constantly telling the stories, it's time to do something, and that's why I got more involved in legislation. So after getting state legislation passed, I figured it's time to do something right here in my own backyard. And my heart is actually aching for a lot of people here in Evanston that helped to build Evanston, that have been here for decades, and they have planned to age in place. This was their plan, was to raise their family and retire here in Evanston. I'm here tonight because longtime Evanston residents, especially seniors on fixed incomes, are reaching out in fear. Not fear of change, but fear of being left behind. They don't qualify for the senior freeze or the exemption, but they're still struggling. And we don't get to have local solutions for them. We haven't had one yet. The property tax and rent circuit breaker program is that solution. It was born from real conversations with Evanston residents who have been here for decades, many aging in place, but unsure how much longer they can afford to stay here. This program doesn't oppose new development. Where's Bobby? It doesn't oppose new development or new taxpayers coming into Evanston. We don't want to block that kind of progress or that kind of growth. It's not about slowing down growth. It's about making sure the residents who helped to build this city, who shaped this culture, raised their families here, and paid into its future aren't forgotten in the process. This program is still researched. We're still doing the work. We don't have all the data yet, but we owe it to the public to let this process continue. Let the facts speak for themselves. I respectfully ask that the committee table this for now, not to delay progress, but to get it right, because we can get this right, and then everyone wins. Let's show our longtime residents that we still see them. Let's lead with care and not just numbers. Thank you.
Moving forward on our agenda for items for discussion. Can I have a motion in relation to HS7?
Move item HS7, property tax circuit breaker. And then, as I mentioned in the last, when this was discussed at Finance and Budget Committee, from talking to Director Flax, Community Development Director, the idea is that something like this will be discussed as part of the strategic housing plan, which was paused, and I believe we're supposed to be discussing it again, I think this month. And I don't know if staff has that information soon. I thought it was gonna be earlier than June. Oh, ACDC is June, okay. So we'll figure that out, but it is important to me, and I think this committee, that we continue that work as soon as we can. So we'll get that information, and I think, again, this should be discussed as part of that.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councilmember Revelle.
Well, I think as Councilmember Burns just indicated, there's a lot of details about this program that need to be discussed and worked out, and I guess I would suggest that it go to HCDC, because that's where we're having a lot of discussions about displacement programs and the strategic housing plan. So that I would recommend that we send it to HCDC.
Yeah, I would. I'll chime in and say yes. I think that's for folks out there. I think that's one committee where we do a real deep dive into the details. Obviously, as I get older, like I know more about aging in place, and have family members that helping out, navigate that, and I think it's with a lot of displacement talk, it's really hard to get the numbers right, because I know anecdotally it is definitely happening. So trying to figure out what percentage of folks are cost burdened by property taxes. I didn't get a chance to really dive in, but just before the meeting we got some more census data from, staff, and then, I was just about to hop out the house, but, Councilmember Kelly.
Yeah, just one, we have collected a lot of data already from the county assessor's office and others, so we will present that. But also, I believe I did pass an ordinance to sign a DA, right? So I know some of the new council members that have been elected are very interested in co-sponsoring, and since I know Councilmember Ravel, a couple of our we've had 4 sponsoring this, so that will change since our last, the new council, I believe, will take a seat on the 28th, right, of this month. So I think this will come forward with a different configuration. I'll continue to lead on this, but I look forward to collaborating with some of the new council members also. So I don't know if it's really worth deciding right now the path for this, as I expect this to come forward again, probably to finance and budget with a new, as a new referral in a sense. Thank you.
So do we not want to move that, or what?
I mean, I think the reality is that this is not, it's not a one-off issue because we're already engaged in the strategic housing planning process. If we weren't engaged in a Vision Evanston, for example, it would make sense to have a working group about a standalone zoning issue. But because we're having this conversation about comprehensive plan and Vision Evanston, I haven't seen us allow kind of a working group outside of that process to form and work on things. I think it could be very confusing and not particularly productive. And so I think if this was at the ACDC committee, and obviously you should be there, Councilmember Kelly, we can just discuss how is this going to be folded into the strategic housing planning process. That would be my question for staff. I think it's, again, it is a permanent subsidy. It's really as simple as that. We subsidize rental units. We've already talked about subsidizing homeowners. It's something we've talked about. The question is, how is it going to be properly folded into the strategic housing planning process so that we're not having these siloed discussions? And I think Director Flax and the ACDC committee can help, and along with your input, can help us figure that out. So that's what I would want to see.
Okay. Any more comments up here?
Sorry, I move that we refer this item to HCDC for, to determine the details and, finalize the program.
Chair Henekais? Okay. So I know at the Finance and Budget Committee, Bobby, you had a problem. You didn't want this to come before the strategic housing plan. And we don't want this to be like, it's some sort of competition for that money from Northwestern. That's not what we want to do. I think this is totally different from what you're doing. And I don't want this to go into what Ravel is proposing and it goes there to die.
That's not consistent with what I'm saying.
There's enough money for these to be separate.
Yeah, and so that's.
We're in a building right now that's over 30 million. We got the money to do this and then do this. They don't have anything to do with each other. Separate. The money is separate. We got the money. I'm sorry, Chair Hadakais. I'm sorry.
Okay. Councilmember Burns?
The Affordable Housing Fund is just a fund. It's a pot of money. And so what the strategic housing plan is going to allow us to do is determine how we want to use those funds. And so I'm not trying to put two things together that they're not together. They don't, other than the Affordable Housing Fund, not just the money that was secured through the Northwestern discussions, but the Affordable Housing Fund can fund whatever priorities the council approves. This could be one of them. And so what I'm saying is that what has been described to me by our community development director, who's over that fund, is that what she would like to see, and I think council would agree, is that a strategic housing planning process should determine how affordable housing funds are prioritized, how much will go towards a program like this, how much will go towards any other number of programs that will come out of that process. And so that's all I'm saying is that we've already started that journey. The question to staff is, how can we incorporate this discussion into the strategic housing discussion? I've never I've never mentioned any battle of money. That hasn't come out of my mouth.
Oh, you mentioned that at the finance and budget, that's why I'm even coming up here,
And I
because you planted the
apologize.
seed that
Yeah.
you do not want this to come before any of what you're doing with the strategic
No, that-
housing. I'm
yeah.
like, it's separate, there's
It's-
enough money for everybody.
Yeah.
And it'd be great if we did get data from staff. It's funny they gave you all data, but we haven't gotten any.
Yeah, so I want it to happen. I think we should move on after, but I think it should happen. I want it to happen simultaneously, so not before. There's nothing. It can't compete with a fund that could potentially fund it. So I just want to see it discussed at the same
What do you
time.
mean, wait, what do you mean it can't compete?
I wanted to see it discussed at the same time as we're discussing every other potential priority or proposal through our strategic housing planning process. So I don't see this at odds with it at all. I think it's something that could work with it, that could be funded by it, in fact. I just think we need to discuss it through our strategic housing planning process, which is underway. It has been delayed, and that's why I said what I would want to know from staff is like, when are we going to start that process? Because I can see the community saying, we don't want to wait on that process if we're not going to have that discussion for another 6 months. And I would agree with that, but we don't have time to wait another 6 months to determine how we're going to use these funds, whether it come from Affordable Housing Fund, whether it come from our General Reserve funds, doesn't matter. We need to start that process. And so we can get back to you even before the ACDC conversation as to when that discussion would happen.
Okay, I appreciate that, Councilmember Burns. We are in an urgent state, and I've seen city council move on things really fast that make no sense whatsoever and spend tons of money. We're in an urgent situation with our residents who are really concerned with aging in place. I mean, and in speaking to the staff that was allowed to speak to us, there's people under the age of 65. I mean, their work value, the money just isn't going as far in Evanston anymore. So it's urgent right now, and especially with the administration, the new administration with Trump, it is urgent right now. So we don't have time for it to go through all of these different committees and programs where it'll probably die because there's more money in new development than there is in saving the people who have been here and have made the land here valuable, that the developers want to come in here and just, build up, which we don't want to stop the progress. We don't want to stop that progress, but we want to look out for those who have been here for decades. And it's urgent. So we don't want to wait. I don't want the people to wait 6 months. I don't want it to be behind other programs in the strategic housing or the other program that Ravel is saying send it to, where I do believe is going to die. If it went there, it's going to die there.
Yeah, it's a committee that discusses the issue.
We're in a situation where we can work on this with staff. I mean,
So,
this is about the people, so I mean, if you got something to do, something else to do. But look, it's about the people. It's about the people. We can do this and all of what Bobby is doing, which is great. I think what he's doing is great with the strategic housing. That be done there too. But we can do this now and get the data and move it forward and fund it. We have other ways to fund it than just the Northwestern Affordable Housing. Thank you, Chair Hadakaisa. I'll leave from there.
so here's, and so I was reminded by staff that we don't have to do any motion. This was for discussion.
Yeah.
So one thing so the three of us, Councilmember Ravel and Burns and myself, sit on HCDC. We have been discussing housing plans and housing mainly on the RLTO and the inclusionary housing. One of the things that we've been talking about with displacement has been how the city interacts with like our emergency funds and what qualifies. And one of the things that it doesn't qualify for relief is property tax relief. And there's many reasons for that. It's, we're not in, the assessor's, office sets property taxes, all these things. Like, we also only get 17% of every property tax dollar. So, this is something that we've discussed, that we would like to be able to help people who are struggling with their property taxes. What does that look like? How do people qualify? I think regardless of what happens tonight, this can be a topic of discussion in our committee. We don't have I don't know why you wanted, Councilmember Kelly wanted to have it come to finance again, because I think the motion earlier was like to table it, so we wouldn't be doing anything. I think is that what?
Yeah, that's correct, because we do have a lot of data already that I would like to present, but not tonight. We're still waiting for more so that it's complete. I also think ultimately it's gonna be the new sitting city council that's gonna decide on the direction. I do also concur with Ms. Gardner that this is something that needs to be addressed immediately. I think people are very frustrated with a lot of the talk of affordable housing for new people, while there are people here that are already, being displaced on a regular basis. So I think it really needs to be left up. We're about to start this same month, a new council is going to be seated. So I don't really think it's appropriate it's going to change course at any rate because of the signing DA ordinance. So that's why I said I didn't think there was really anything for you to do with this tonight.
I think we've already had a discussion. I've made it kind of clear where I'm at with this, and then to Councilmember Kelly's point, ultimately the council will decide what direction we're going. So I think we discussed it.
So we're just, okay, fine, I guess we're done then.